Welcome to episode 66 of Everything Teams Phone Live. I can't get over the intro. It's a good little jingle. I love it. It's better than my jingle, isn't it? Like it is better than the ba-da-ba-da. It's really nice. I kind of get the shoulders.
Can't even compare, Rick.
That's why we recruited Bailey, was to make us look more polished.
Creative director, I am now fired. I get it. Okay. Everyone, this episode is super, super cool. I'm very excited. We have a we're going to introduce her in just a second, but man, this topic has become in a short order near and dear to my heart. This is so exciting. I can't even tell you about it. There's so much to talk about. So I think we just kind of hop right in. Brandon, how you doing today? You good?
I'm good. It's if you can believe it, it's August already, and we're well into 2024. So this topic, I think, is even more important because as we catapult towards 2025, this new product, I shouldn't say new, but this new topic around Teams Phone and the mobile integration piece, I think, becomes more and more relevant as we move into 2025. And Rick, I think you're going to mention something later about what Europe is doing around mobile versus fixed line. And then, of course, if everyone remembers or watched our last episode around, what happened with CrowdStrike, this just becomes an even more important topic around business continuity and how businesses can stay online and working if disaster strikes.
Yep. Okay. I want to introduce our guest, but because we're going to, just as soon as we introduce her, we're diving in. I've got one more thing for housekeeping. Bailey, you got some housekeeping for us, Bailey?
I sure do. As you guys know, this podcast is sponsored by Momentum, where we elevate your business with Microsoft Teams.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Everyone, welcome to the Everything Teams Phone Live stage. Vandana Thomas from Microsoft. She's the head of Teams Phone Mobile, and I have not been more excited. Vandana, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I am really very excited to be here. Rick, I think the first time I met you, it was at Cloud Communication Alliance. Yeah. And I was very happy and impressed listening to you on stage there as an audience member. So I'm really happy to be with you here and with Brandon doing this.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I do remember that. I do. I remember us chatting. I remember you in the audience, and I remember because I think you asked a question, and I remember us chatting after that, and I was like, well, we've got to connect and think about Teams Phone Mobile. And I wasn't, so when I think about Teams Phone Mobile, I'm going to say pre 2 weeks ago, because this is how fresh it is for me, because it takes a while to settle in the brain, right? Like it takes a while for people to really kind of get it. And I've been in the telecom business for 25 years, believe it or not. And it took me so long to kind of put the gears together, right? And after our meeting on campus, was it just last week? It was either just last week or 2 weeks ago. After our meeting on campus, I kind of got it, but then it started to sink in. And then I was like, oh no. And then Brandon and I started having regular, daily meetings. Brandon and I were having daily meetings on this. And I'm like, oh no.
Let's be honest. When he says daily meetings, that's like a formality. He's calling me at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, like, we got to talk about this. So that's what he means by daily meetings.
It has consumed my brain. And so I want to ask you, and if you think about, there's a lot of things to talk about when we get down to it, but what is Teams Phone Mobile? Why is it something that businesses should want? Why is it, and we're going to get into what Microsoft has done to make it easy, all that good stuff, but what is it, and what is it supposed to do? And what's Microsoft's sort of, I'm not going to say strategy behind it, but what's Microsoft's sort of idea? Like how is this going to interact in daily lives of business providers? A lot to unpack.
Lots to unpack. But, let's start with where you started, right? I mean, when you talk about communication and how you've known best to communicate today, people have voice and PSTN calling for a really, really like long time. And fixed line or the desk phone was like the primary calling device a long time ago. Um, and now, who has a desk phone? Like, I know very few people who have a desk phone. Most of those numbers are now cloud numbers, right? This is exactly the journey that we are trying to take the mobile number on with Teams for Mobile. And it's like you said, it's 25 years you've been in the telecom industry, and for someone to wrap their head around this concept itself takes a little bit to go. And the reason for that is we've gotten so used to over the top applications to do calling and communication collaboration. So Teams, for example, just even without having the calling function, people don't even know that there is a Teams phone in Teams. Sometimes I have to explain that I work in Teams phone, and they're like, what is that? Like, yeah, the same thing that you use for VoIP calling. If you want to call someone outside if you want to use it as a phone, you can. So explaining that concept itself is really hard for people to understand, that why do I need a phone on my mobile phone, or why will my app integrate with my phone on my mobile phone? Simply put, it is basically taking your mobile number, elevating it to the cloud, and making it a cloud calling number. That's as simple as it is.
Yeah.
Let me stop there.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I want to get. I'm not going to get super technical, but I want to get kind of technical because I think for the listener, I think there's some people sitting there going, "But I already do this today with my phone system, where I've got my VoIP application and it's got calling, and I can set it up to forward to my cell phone, so I can get the mobile call." So, what is the difference between that and what Microsoft is doing with this tight integration that lifts really the features of Teams out into the mobile environment? Maybe you can help unpack that for our listeners.
Or just real quick, just to add on to that, or yeah, you're right. I already do this. I've got an application. I've got Teams phone or Teams on my cell phone, right? I've got Teams right there. So, I already get my Teams calls on my mobile device. Like, how is this different? So yeah, so that perfect. There you go. Go for it.
Yeah, that's the hardest part to unpack here, right? Why is this different? And for that, we probably need to dig into a little bit of history around IMS calling and OTT VoIP calling, and understand the differences between the two, right? Today, when you're using your mobile phone to make a call, what you're assured of is the quality of the voice with the high quality quality of service that you are so used to with calling. The when you're out and about as a mobile worker, you tend to take your phone calling for granted. How many times do you use an application to make a call while you're on the go? You very rarely do, especially if you're calling somebody outside. You're just going to go to your familiar green button on your mobile device and make a call.
Yeah.
And you know that it'll work. You just trust that it'll work.
Right.
Right? On the other hand, then you have the rich features that a Teams app or other UC collaboration apps give you. Hey, I can do video. Hey, I can uplift this to a meeting, share my screen, do all that fancy jazz, and bring the best of the modern world into calling. But if I try to do that on the go, I would have several moments of reconnecting, standing there still. You, as a business worker, can you really rely on that to be 100% available to you in all network conditions.
So I'm gonna ask a question about this, because it's interesting, because when I thought about Teams Phone Mobile before, right? When I was thinking about, okay, even these other, there's Tango that does something that's a
eSIM.
dual SIM, eSIM, right? So you can flip between your profiles and things like that. But that was like the first pitch. Wanda, that was like the first thing I thought of was, okay, so you can take your device. Let's say I'm a plumber and I'm running around, and if I don't have data at some point, I need this cell network, to complete this call. So I can't trust the app all the time to be available for me in a 5G or 4G or whatever area, right? To run that application. Therefore, you're right. You just use your standard sort of mobile device and your mobile network. So the interesting thing is that was exactly the use case that I thought of when we talked about Teams Phone. However, after our discussion, I'm like, oh man, the use cases are far. I think there's so many more use cases that actually are even better. Like there's the security posture for an organization, right? If you're not a BYOD organization, and we'll talk about what that means, but there's that security piece. There is redundancy. If you are, if you're talking about, everyone always goes, what if my internet goes out? What if my system goes out? And in the cloud business, we've always said it's in the cloud. You can forward it to your mobile device. You can have it on your mobile device, but it's an application, right? It's an application on your mobile device. It's got to be forwarded to your mobile device. This is completely different. Yes. This lives natively on the mobile network. So this is what you mean by you've elevated the mobile number up to be the single number for your. I started, Brandon and I were going back and forth about this. I'm like, if you walked in to your office and you were on your mobile phone, just on a mobile phone call, and you walk into your office and you put your mobile phone down, and now I've got my desk phone, which I'm going to just call my PC, my desk phone, or if I so chose, because this is Teams and I wanted a physical device connected to Teams, my mobile device, my mobile number is just one of the 2 or 2.5 average devices that I could possibly use, but it's all a single number.
It is all single number. And let's look at that exactly, right? So if you're walking from your home today without Teams Phone Mobile on your native call, you'll have to put that call down and go to your laptop and then either call someone or join a meeting. In this case, you just seamlessly transition, like whatever your device, it takes the guesswork out of which endpoint should I use to call. And that's why when what we've combined is the security, the reliability, the availability of your mobile network with the 5 nines of the Teams phone. And we've combined that with all of the collaboration benefits, the device agnostic, is there a word called agnosticity? Anyway, the ability to be device agnostic across your endpoints, right? We've combined all of that together into one concept. When we say that this is a single number, we are transitioning to the vision of, I just need to know that I need to call Rick Garcia or I need to call 1234. It doesn't matter. It is interchangeable. I call 1234. It reaches Rick Garcia on all his endpoints. And he can take this call, move it from one endpoint to the other. I'm moving from a very a strong cellular network to like now a Wi-Fi network, then it's easy for me to transition from my native dialer to my Teams endpoint. I want to go from a voice immersive experience to a rich collaboration experience. I don't need to break the flow of my work. This product meets you where you want to be. I want to be in the car, focusing on the voice and focusing on the road. It allows me to do that. But the minute I walk into my office, like you just said, I can just pull that call onto my laptop and just you won't even know that I transitioned.
So this is an interesting thing, and I'm going to probably oversimplify this. And Rick and I, we spend a lot of time on this show stressing the way Microsoft has flipped communication and collaboration on its head in the sense of attaching the components to an identity. And so what I'm hearing is this mobile integration solution where now my mobile number is my Teams phone number and it's attached to this feature-rich Microsoft platform. Really what I'm hearing is I've now extended, and when I say I mean Microsoft has now extended an enterprise's ability to push the identity all the way out into the mobile network. So now, as you said, if I want to call Rick Garcia, I can initiate that in an identity-based fashion in Microsoft, and he can receive that however he chooses. In the network, on the data network, on the application, or out on the mobile network, and his identity follows him out there. And vice versa. If he starts on the mobile network, Microsoft has it tied to his identity. So when he sits down at his desk, he has access to that communication. It's attached to his identity, so he can move that collaboration up into a meeting, up into a video call, whatever his preference is. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes, that's
exactly. Yeah. So here's what's interesting to me. Well, this is what's really, really interesting. Back in the day, 1996, we'll call it 1996, the breakup of the bills, right? So there was one provider, essentially called AT&T. You called AT&T, you got a phone, and that was real simple because that was the ubiquitous layer of service, right? Whether you were a business, whether you were a resident, there was a ubiquitous service provider in AT&T. Then you go 1996, the CLECs start to come out, and CLECs break up, and now the service becomes hodgepodge, particularly for businesses, right? And there are different regions for residents, right? Then you uplift it a little bit, and you go, now here's the cloud providers, the Vonages of the world, the Rings, the Momentums, right? So now you've got the VoIP providers that sit on that layer and still use that sort of legacy sort of network to some degree, right? And they're like, they got their own patch of services, right? But there's no one that's been ubiquitous across the board. And now you've got instead of the network being the ubiquitous component, you've got Teams being the ubiquitous component, right? And by ubiquitous, I mean you can use, anyone in the world can use Teams. There's 320 million Teams providers, and there's 20 million PSTN providers, 20 million PSTN subscribers, right? So you look at that and you go, thank you, Brandon. And you look at that and you go, that is the most ubiquitous platform from a communications perspective ever, right? Sans WhatsApp, as an example, WhatsApp being very ubiquitous across the globe, just not North America, right? So for end users, but in the corporation, how many corporate mobile users do you guys know the number of there's corporate business users that are mobile enabled? Do we know what that number is?
So if you only talked about corporate liable numbers, we're specifically talking about corporate liable numbers because we don't want to bring your personal number over into Teams, right? We want to bring into your business. You want to bring your corporate liable, your business provider. Worldwide, we estimate that to be 500 million corporate liable mobile numbers, and a good 20-30% of it will be in North America alone. Right. Now, let's consider that white space for a moment that you touched upon. 320 million Teams users, out of which 20 million are fitted with the PSTN connectivity with Teams phone. We have a 300 million white space in Teams, of which we know on Teams, more than 50% of users are mobile users as well, right? Whose mobile number is not on Teams yet. They're using Teams as an over-the-top application on on a mobile device, which could be personal or corporate liable, corporate device, doesn't matter. The phone number that is provided by the business, there's a great opportunity to simplify the communication portfolio a business uses and use one number across teams and their mobile device. Oftentimes companies are buying two numbers. How many of you know your phone number on Teams? And how many of you know your mobile number?
I know it because I'm in the phone business one. I'm in the business, so I know my number is.
But here's the
I don't know my Teams number. I know my Teams number now because it's a Teams phone mobile number and it's my mobile number. But before
Okay,
that,
okay.
I did know my number, right?
No. Okay.
Yeah, I usually have to go look at my email signature because I'm like, I think I remember
Yeah.
it, but I don't. But yeah, it's I bet more people than not don't probably they're not using their over the top number as much because maybe they're already a mobile worker like a sales agent where they're out in the field where they're preferring to use their mobile number because the points made earlier, it's more convenient. I get in my car. If it's me, if I get in the car and I want to call Rick, I'm not looking at my phone to dial his number. I'm literally using my voice prompt, that's built into the phone, whether it's Siri or Google, and I'm telling my device who to call. And I think to the point of all of these 500 million estimated mobile users, I wonder how many of the 500 million are actually using a personal number against corporate policy because it's convenient for them.
Okay, so Vandana, let me ask you this: is that $500 million? Is that inclusive of BYOD, or is that just corporate numbers that have been handed out to individuals that the company is in control of?
We're specifically talking, so across the world, if you just consider mobile endpoints or mobile numbers, whether it's an IoT or whether it's personal number, there's north of 5 billion numbers. Okay, it's more. It's 7 billion according to like the GSMA report and the Ericsson Mobility report I recently read. You guys can go check that out. But the one specific thing that we talked about here, the 500 million users, are corporate liable numbers. So businesses buy these numbers. Now, these could be residing on corporate owned devices or personal owned devices, right? So personal owned devices is what we talk about when we say BYOD, because BYOD is a very abused concept. So I just want to make that very clear to us. So, and oftentimes it's fine. Even I have a corporate provided mobile device. I still use my personal device because I bought the latest and greatest and I want to use my personal device, but I have MDM over it. But I use my business number on my personal device, right? So
got it.
Let's unpack that, right? And probably I don't know whether we should segue into this topic or whether we should hold this thought for later. But did I lose you guys for a second?
Yeah, just for a second. I'm good. You're good now.
Yeah. So let me bring down all the the 4 pillars in which I look at Teams Phone Mobile as providing value to sort of, bring all this discussion together. We touched on a few things and then we can deep dive on a few of that. We have only 15 minutes left, I think. So the first piece that we talked about is the ease of use or the flexibility of use, right? Which is we're device agnostic, we're endpoint agnostic. The product meets the user where the user wants to make the call or receive the call. It doesn't matter whether it is on your physical device, your personal device, your corporate device, doesn't matter. It allows you to ring the number wherever the SIM is present, or even if the SIM is not present, the app is present. So the app and the SIM are interchangeable. So the flexibility of that is the first key concept. The second concept, which is the second pillar, is the intelligence and the connectivity that now we've blurred the lines between the two, right? So in a way, there is the ability to make a voice only call, or you make a intelligent collaborative call, a unified communication call. So you can uplift the call anytime to go into a full-blown meeting or a full-blown video call and all of that, right? Plus, we forget the whole AI concept that's come. Like, the one thing that I always tell people is we forget that when you bring these two concepts together, Teams, I can't catch up with the Teams features. I'm dumb every day trying to catch up with what Teams launched today. But every single feature that is launched on Teams is now available to a user that was only using a mobile device for communication. Previously, you've collapsed that and blurred the lines. It's a gift that keeps giving in that sense. So
Right.
AI, Copilot, bringing Copilot into the native voice call, to not have to take notes, to forget about what Brandon action itemed you with or what Rick action itemed you with, and then it having that integration into your CRM systems, into your workflow systems. These are all going to be possible soon. It's not available right now, but going to be possible soon.
Let me ask a question about this, Earl. I want to just from a numbers perspective, how many calls, and I don't know if you know this or not, I think, what's the percentage of calls on mobile versus calls on fixed line? Do you know that percentage? I think it was like 80-20, something like that. Is 80% mobile? Is that right?
I don't know the exact number, but it is like when you make external calls to it's significantly higher, the mobile calls calls made externally when you use. Yeah.
And that's my point there, is that the majority of the calls
reason I'm saying
the
reason I'm saying externally is because a lot of internal calls are VoIP, right? That might be, or even the fixed line number that is being used, but we use a lot of that internally. But when you're calling external customers, etc., a lot of those calls are mobile.
Right. So it's like you're calling. So that's my point, is that if you're on, most calls today made by the consumer, let's just say, right? I think, and so business to business, there's a lot of collaboration that goes on, right? It's very seldom now that you get a call in to your business line and you go, oh, who's that? And you look at the number of calling and you're like, I don't know who that is. I'm not even gonna answer it, right? It's like, so the business to business calling that traffic seems to be dwindling because collaboration is coming in and everyone's collaborating, right? So whether you're teams to teams or you're collaborating, and then you've got now chat as a significant sort of channel these days. Chat has emerged as kind of the big channel that's aside from voice. Chat's the big one, right? So you look at this and you go, the majority of the communications that's happening now, you go mobile, right? You go chat or web chat, and then you go collaboration, and those are the three forms of communication versus your traditional PSTN call on your on a fixed line number, right? So that fixed line traffic, I mean, I saw the study for Europe not too long ago. That fixed line traffic is dwindling pretty significantly. That's my wavy line. Pretty significantly, that fixed line traffic is dwindling, and so people are not choosing to make those calls.
20% year over year.
20% year over year.
20% year over year.
So this is okay, Brandon.
Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, we've had guests.
That's based on reports so far.
Yeah, and I mean, we've had other guests on the show where they joke about, we get on this podcast to talk about everything Teams phone being the key word, and the joke is, why are we talking about phone when, I don't know about you guys, but I don't even have a fixed line residential number, right? I've never had a landline in my residence ever. because it's always been mobile first for me. And I think the business is following that. It's taken some years for it to catch up, but the businesses probably, if we had to estimate, will end up following that same trend down the road.
Interesting word, interesting comment, Brandon. Mobile first. You said something that's interesting. Mobile first. Okay. I want to bring to, I think, everyone's attention, and somebody, we got a lot of Microsoft people, I'm sure, that are watching today. You guys can correct me, like in Europe as an example, but Europe has decided to shut the PSTN down. They were going to do it, I think, in 2025, but then they pushed it out to 2027. So they're literally shutting down their fixed line infrastructure, right? Because lots of countries around Europe are mobile first, and that is they didn't have maybe the infrastructure of a PSTN like we've got here in North America as an example, but they're mobile first countries, and Europe, I think, is probably well ahead of the US in that they're migrating to mobile at a faster pace. They're using more mobile applications. They're more open to accepting different things. I mean, WhatsApp is massive, in Europe, and that's not a voice call, but it could be a voice call because I make calls on WhatsApp all the time. So mobile first. Are you guys seeing at Microsoft? Are you guys seeing organizations start to adopt a mobile first sort of posture?
Absolutely, and the big shift is happening because this whole there's recognition about this whole cutting the cord happening across a lot of the businesses, and switching to a VoIP only mechanism is okay for a lot of people who cut the cord and go do VoIP only for internal calling. But the minute you're a mobile worker, or a frontline worker, a good 20 to 30% of a large corporation's employee base is mobile only or mobile first. And today there isn't a really good solution for them to integrate their calling with the rest of the enterprise. They remain in two different silos. So that's one piece. The second piece is just the governance that is, and the regulations that are lost on the native endpoint. With the advent of AI, the AI era coming in, people didn't realize that over the last 4 years, as people emerged from the pandemic and people were forced to go towards using mobile calling to address their needs, a lot of wild west happened. People like shut their eyes, look the other way with respect to whether there was governance of policies and everything on that mobile calling. It wasn't. People have to buy specific extra products to go ahead and make sure they lock down their mobile calling. Think about the financial services, which is highly regulated. Think about health services, where doctors talking to patients, and think about education, where teachers are talking to students. So there are a lot of regulations that need to be applied and governance that needs to be applied on an employee's communication, which today is not happening on your mobile calling. Yet you're not going to not have your mobile interface, because you don't need your mobile number only for calling, you need it for data as well. So that endpoint's going to exist. Text messages are going to go from traders to customers, and doctors to patients, and teachers to students. How do you lock all this down, right? Think now, this was just basic without AI. Now you bring AI to the mix. Where are you going to draw the boundaries? How is your internal communication not going to end up in an external well and then cross the lines, right? So when you think about that, now a lot of the companies, to the question you asked us, are the companies coming to us and telling us that, hey, this is needing to change? Large pharmaceutical companies, large financial companies, large consulting companies have are now adopting Teams Phone Mobile to exactly address these needs. They're moving from a BYOD based policy to a corporate owned, corporate paid device, so they can shut it down, so that when Brandon is told by the CIO of the company that, hey, Brandon, look, you're a very high valued employee engaging in like a lot of intellectual copyrights for my company. I want to make sure that everything happens on a lockdown device, right? We're moving to security approved workstations in the company. We're not allowed to use like non-SAW machines, we call them SAW machines, to do any of our software development. So slowly this is now becoming a trend for your mobile devices as well.
I see this. Hold on a second. Let me make sure I understand this right. And interesting, you say the third-party applications for security to secure those mobile devices. I was in the middle of looking up some stats for this discussion, and I saw that the software business for controlling mobile devices is something like $100 billion business to control mobile devices. So I want to make sure I understand this. So if you have Teams Phone Mobile, if corporations are moving to Teams Phone Mobile because, well, they're moving to Teams Phone Mobile for this one number, thing. They get to address a lot of frontline workers. They get to address. I think the knowledge worker is perfect for a mobile device, mobile number. But if I think about this for a second, you just basically said that device is going to fall under the corporate governance, the corporate security policy of within Teams. So they don't need another piece of software to control the mobile environment. Now they inherently get it because it's all taken care of with policy built into Teams.
Yes.
Is that?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's absolutely right. So probably I know, Brandon, you were trying to touch upon this a little earlier about how this integration, the mobile integration, has happened between the operators and Microsoft Teams for this to happen. A lot of this is because of that, because every call that you make on this number, doesn't matter which device, which endpoint, whether you make it from Teams, whether you make it from your green dialer on your native device, every call that you make on this number or receive on this number is we've integrated the two networks so closely that both the networks are aware of the call that is ongoing, because the call is routed to Microsoft. Microsoft applies the call control on it and invites, for example, the compliance bot to the call if your admin has enabled compliance recording for you, or the admin, in the case of a doctor, wants to make sure that the outgoing call that goes to the patient goes out as Swedish Medical, or and not my personal number. My number is not exposed to my patient or a customer that I'm talking to, or the third case wherein I want to be able to bring in a supervisor to listen into the call. It's integrated into the PBX systems, right? So to allow for all the PBX functionality to be there, to be whispering in my ear, look, you're having a wrong discussion right now, or whatever that might be, if that is part of the policy, if you're a call center employee, for example, a small call center employee, maybe.
Let's make sure we, for our listeners, we delineate as well this idea of bring your own device versus corporate managed, because there's a couple aspects, right? There's the phone feature compliance policies that you can apply where, hey, user, you can't complete this call unless we know we can record it. You can put all these guardrails around it. And when we start talking about, Teams Phone Mobile, you've also got this device. Like I've got my personal device. Today, I'm allowed to install maybe the Teams application and sign in using my identity. It's a bring your own device, and corporations have to start making this decision. Do we allow users to continue to use their private, personally owned devices, or especially in the big financing one? I think our finance sector, that's a great example, right? There was a big bank, won't say any names, got in big trouble during
Mhm.
pandemic over
Yes.
the use of communication over personal devices.
Yeah.
So, Microsoft obviously has other aspects like Intune, device management, where corporations can start to make policies to say, you know what, Rick Garcia, I'm going to apply a device management policy that says you cannot log in on your personal device. You can't use any of our corporate services on your personal device. And here's our company device. You're allowed to use this because we can manage it. We can control it. Maybe it's locking it down so you can't go to said AI interface to inadvertently leak corporate proprietary data out to this big AI model that's
That's right.
exposed to the public. So I just want to make sure that our listeners understand that there's kind of these two components that go hand in hand and are very relevant to the discussion, especially around Teams Phone Mobile and how you equip that, that mobile user to be compliant.
And let me like enunciate that a little more, right? It is what applies to your corporation.
Mhm.
It puts the corporation in charge for the communication of their employees. And if the corporation wants less control, they are free to allow you to bring a BYOD device and use an eSIM as a second SIM, or you know, use both the user MDM policy. I have, for example, a work profile and a personal profile. That's possible if you are not a highly regulated employee. But if you are a highly regulated employee, it again puts the corporation in charge and says, okay, I feel comfortable as the CIO of my company, as the HR head of the company, as the corporate legal affairs head of the company, that this set of employees that I need to follow these guidelines will be following these guidelines. Whereas this set of employees who I don't really, they're fine. They're not that regulated because they're not talking to the traders or they're not talking to the patients, or don't need that. They can have a more relaxed policy and it's fine. So
Oh,
yeah,
no, go ahead. Go ahead. You
yeah,
want to
no,
finish
the
that?
policy can vary within the company between employees, and the policy can vary between companies. One company can be all shut down, one company can be all relaxed. Doesn't matter. It's just what it's putting the corporation in charge of, in control of their fate.
Yeah, a couple of things here. So number one, there was so the difference of, like, Brandon, I'm just going to say this really quickly. I didn't know this stat, but 4 in 5 people prefer 2 devices, one for business, one for personal. I had no idea. I've never carried 2 devices, but I will say this: there's 2 things that are happening that I think that are driving corporate sort of growth, corporate plan growth. Number one, the security requirements now are exponentially more stringent than they were 5 years ago, even 3 years ago, even 2 years ago, right? It is now. It takes everybody 5 minutes to log into their PC now before it boots up and does all the security stuff and runs it all. And how many people have been blocked? Yes, it's 4 and 5 have been blocked from sites, as an example, from maybe it's an AI site and things like that. So that's interesting to me because I can see how the corporate plans, the corporate growth is there. Now, what you get with Teams is pretty interesting to me too, because we've talked a lot about the corporate stuff, right? The stringent controls that a corporation needs, whether you're a regulated, the finance guys, the healthcare guys, right? They all need those really tight controls. They need to understand what's happening on their communications. I love that there is now AI injected into, or Copilot injected into those conversations. Think about keeping information based on what's being communicated to those customers. You can keep all that inside your tenant, right? Which is pretty awesome because you can have history there and know exactly what's happening with a customer. But I also want to get to the unregulated or not so regulated group, because what I think is key here is that, number one, it addresses those big customers. But number two, and we haven't talked about it much, but those small businesses that maybe have 25 or 50 or 100 mobile devices out there, and they're never as stringent as the corporations, right? They don't have the resources to be so stringent from a security posture perspective that a larger organization does. But what's interesting is this. They all need communications. They all need a device. They all need mobility. They all need a phone system to potentially take in those customers that are calling in. So having Teams Phone Mobile, it gives you the full phone system that you would normally have on a fixed line solution at the mobile level. So I can go build a phone system of just cell phones, right? Yeah. Fixed mobile convergence has been a thing since 2000 and whatever, right? Like it's been a long time, maybe even before that. And no one has been very successful at it because it has not been a ubiquitous experience across the board. Teams brings that ubiquity back globally. Like that ubiquity becomes something there. So I love the small business aspect where I can go build a phone system and get that inherently with Teams. And as my sophistication grows, my security posture grows, I can just adopt the policies that are simply available to me in Teams already.
Yeah.
And it's like you said it earlier, it's a gift that keeps giving, right? You have the whole thing there for you.
It is. And that touches upon the fourth aspect of it, is the simplicity of managing your communication profile. Why? You asked the question at the beginning, why do you need this? It's simple. It's going to make it very simple for you as a corporation, as a small business owner. Take this number and then put it on Teams, and that's it. You just enable it. You don't have to buy any sophisticated PBX equipment. You don't have to manage this legacy systems that then you pay an additional amount to manage and all of that. You don't need that. You just take this number, put it on Teams, and that's it. It takes literally minutes to configure it after you work with your operator, get the number and all that stuff. Enabling the user, once you procure the numbers and upload it into the tenant, it takes literally minutes. People are in and out of the experience, ready to use the experience. So summarizing again, the flexibility of the use, the intelligent connectivity, bringing in the intelligence and the collaboration, the productivity aspects to a mobile worker. Security, reliability, and governance. I have to touch on reliability. I'll hold the thought there for a second. And then the last one is the simplicity of the management. These are the 4 pillars that we've been talking about. In the security and the reliability, the one piece that I didn't touch upon is, you touched upon this in the beginning, we had this whole CrowdStrike thing a few days ago, and outages, whether we like it or not, is a thing that happens in this complex technology world that we live in, right? So we already are 5 nines for Teams Phone, but with this endpoint added, the reliability and the availability of the mobile network and the Teams cloud, the collaboration cloud, really become backups of each other. If one goes down, I can still continue to have business continuity because I can make my calls on my native dialer. The same number works there. If this goes down, I can still make calls through Teams. So it's this becoming backups of each other is more than 5 nines. I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't.
But you're right, though.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but you're. Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, what I'm hearing is it's like in the old days, the old TDM days, you had survivability branch devices hanging off at different branches, so that if the core goes down, you have the survivability. What I'm hearing is this is at the most grand scale of, you've got the mobile and you've got Teams, and either one can survive without the other in the event of disaster, which is
that is right.
Amazing.
Redundancy, disaster recovery, disaster.
It's built in. It's built in, right? You get the security. You get the redundancy. You get the simplicity. and you get the mobility. It's all why.
And
Why?
you have
Security, mobility.
you also have to think about, yes, we have a target on our back as a large company like Microsoft that we are, but we are also ahead of the game each time. Like you have the brightest minds thinking about how to be secure, how to be compliant, how to continue your business even if there is a glitch. it you can rely on us, you can trust on us. Trust is a word we live by, and we collaborate now with the mobile network operators who you also trust on. So it's not just us operating on our own, it is two really strong entities that are, you know, um, 800 pound gorillas in their own rights that are really coming together and making this work. So you talked about the ubiquity of Teams, but we also are talking about the power of 5G that now makes the ubiquity of Teams become more resilient, more reliable, more available. It's just combining these two worlds that beg to be combined for a really long time.
Yeah.
Tens of years, decades that have gone for fixed mobile conversions. All the technology pieces are finally here. We've now finally made this happen. It's future proofing your communication now
Yeah.
with AI,
I
everything
love it.
that's coming together.
This is just fantastic. Okay, let me ask you a question. So, how many carriers, mobile network operators, are you into? Is Microsoft, is Teams integrated with?
At this point, we are generally available right now with in 9 countries, right? So Rogers in Canada, Verizon in the USA, uh, British Telecom in UK, Telia in Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, Swisscom in Switzerland, and Liechtenstein, which I can never pronounce, and
Liechtenstein.
yeah, and DTAG or T-Mobile Germany, right? And then what's coming soon before the end of this year is AT&T in the USA, which everybody is waiting for because this really then allows us to cover literally majority of the enterprise and the government, the large customers in the US. We have Vodafone coming in the UK, which then allows us to really be, and VMO2 in the UK. So we'll have covered UK really well between these 3 operators. And then Odido, which was T-Mobile Netherlands previously, Odido is also coming. Netherlands is another one where you were talking about they're shutting down their fixed line network soon. So all these companies, all these countries in Europe and the and North America are mostly covered, and a lot more are coming, which we've not publicly announced, but we are working with all the large operators, including the emerging markets.
Got it. This is pretty exciting. I think when Teams Phone Mobile first kind of first rolled out, or when I first heard of Teams Phone Mobile, I thought to myself, no one, I'm not gonna have a mobile phone for my main number. My main number is my main number. It's on my PC. It's on my physical phone. At some point, I had one a few years ago, but I didn't really think through the benefits of having Teams Phone Mobile be your main number, because you fix I like coming to my desk and I like working on my desk. I don't like working on my cell phone. I actually hate working on my cell phone. I like the screen's too small. I need glasses to see. So I like working on my PC. So the misconception for me was, okay, my mobile knows my main number, and this is what I'm going to talk on all the time. That's not the case, right? That's just the number is just it's available in everything. It's available on everything. It's just being serviced by a mobile network operator, which is pretty.
I think it just goes back to Rick. It's your identity now, right? It's I want to get a hold of Rick. It's just a part of your identity and a
Yeah.
means to me reaching your identity. And Rick, you and I know this. We go to I actually used a term. I totally made it up. I'm not even sure if it's sticky yet or not. But I was telling a customer today, their comment was, "Man, it seems like you're always on the go." And I said, "Yeah, I pond hop a lot because Rick and I tend to hop over to Europe quite a bit for business." And Rick and I have been in situations where we get to Europe and our 5G connection works great, so our team's mobile app is fine, right? We're joining calls from the 5G data network. But this last time we hit London in the peak of tourist season with massive events going around the city. I mean, packed like you haven't seen. And both of us, I think Rick, you were on Verizon, I was on T-Mobile, and I'm not sure what operators they're partnered with in London, but neither one of us could get our 5G connection to work reliably. Everywhere we went, 5G was just non-existent. So can you imagine Teams Phone Mobile in those scenarios where now I still want to talk to Rick and I don't have to figure out how to get a hold of him via WhatsApp or some other avenue that isn't going to cost me an arm and a leg to do.
Yeah, and talking about, like, Rick, I'll touch upon this, Brandon, but I wanted to say this, right? Rick, you prefer working on your desktop, but you have the luxury of that, right? The mobile worker, or when you are on the go, you don't have the luxury of it. And then you're so handicapped with not being able to see what everybody else is talking about. But this brings that to you, right? And to touch upon the second piece here, which is about the connectivity when you are not in your home country and when you are making all these incidental expenditure for the company. Your company might be thinking of spending $50 for you for your mobile calling, but the minute you are abroad, you're now spending $200 a month for this. These incidentals are not obviously spoken about, but then if you shift it to Teams Phone Mobile, a lot of this communication can happen over data, and then that you can change those calls into VoIP calls. And you don't have to think about it, it will naturally happen for you, right? So these are like silent ways that your incidental costs are saved. Your incidental costs are saved from all the simplicity of the management that your admin's doing for you as a company, not having to rely on spending so much money on the PBX systems, the extra compliance recording, or the caller ID protection that you need to put. All of this in here, the fraud protection, everything inside it, because Teams has to hold itself to a high bar to meet the security threats that we we have to guard ourselves against. It's again a gift that comes to you without you having to think about it. Cost savings that come to you without even realizing. So when you look at the business case for a company, a lot of these silent incidental cost savings should also be factored in.
Interesting. Let me ask you, and I think we talked about this in person. You've got a case study coming out, right? Is it Forrester's got a case study coming out? Is it Forrester, right? I love the TEI report that came out for Teams Phone. And so, do you have one of those coming out for Teams Phone Mobile?
It will come shortly soon. We're right in the midst of getting that all worked out so that businesses can really use this sort of TEI impact calculator for you to make a decision on your how you can reduce your spend or how you can maximize your usage. So that report's going to be available soon.
Okay, last little question here. So is Teams Phone Mobile the same thing as Teams Phone, like from a licensing perspective? Is it, if it's is it like, here's your $8 for your Teams Phone Mobile license? Is it a different SKU? Like, how does that get added to your tenant?
Yeah, it's the same SKU. It was at the beginning when we had launched, we had a $0 SKU that we had initially done as a not so sure whether we would charge for it or not. And then we, after a year, sort of concluded that we're not going to charge extra for it. It is going to be baked into your phone, Teams phone SKU itself. So if you have Teams phone, if you have E5, if you have any phone product from Microsoft, you will get it. One caveat though, your mobile number needs to be acquired from your provider, whoever your provider is. Let's say it's Verizon, AT&T, whoever, and they might add um, some sort of a feature so that the phone number now gets their mobile number is really getting a lot more by the Teams integration, if you will be. It's like a lot of value added services that's coming to voice calling. So they might charge for that depending on, I think AT&T is launching with a $0 product themselves, but Verizon's is competitive as well. They bake in other products into it. So yeah, the simple answer, no additional SKU from Microsoft, but you might have to buy an additional feature from the operator to do the connectivity.
So a couple of things there, just, and I know we're basically out of time here, but we're going to just add, I got one more question here. Just the mobile stuff, when you're porting your number onto a mobile network from, let's say, fixed line as an example, that process still takes days, whatever it may be, right? So 5 days or whatever it may be. But once your number's mobile, is it plausible that mobile to mobile at some point would be simple and fast like it is in the mobile network? You walk into a Verizon store and you say, hey, I need I want to move from AT&T to Verizon. Is that process going to be the same? Is there, I wonder if the Microsoft integration ties into that so that it's, you can take your Teams mobile number with you to whatever network you're going to live on that's different.
Unfortunately, number portability will still go through the portability
for business. That takes forever. Okay, well, I was
but maybe in a future situation, the way I envision this, and this is a good way maybe to end where the roadmap's headed to. We've launched with voice right now, right? So in the future, we're bringing text messaging to Teams as well, and then allowing you to use to record your text messages that you send and receive on your native in a compliance archival system that is the same as your voice archival system. So we're bringing that. A lot of AI capabilities that are coming for Teams Phone is coming. So like intelligent call recap, after the call's recapped, intelligent call transfers. So when I transfer the call from me to the next person, the supervisor, or the next person, next agent, there are notes that are already added into it before you come into the call, so that you don't have to do that. And this is all AI generated, so you get that. Then AI-based speech enhancements, like improving, adding voice isolation to the call to improve the focus, so that it's just not noise suppression, but it's actually learning your voice and isolating your voice so that you have crystal clear communication, including, and along with that, if you need to do translation, if Rick wants to speak in Spanish and I want to speak in Hindi, we can still have a good business discussion. And then real-time call summarization, as well as you're talking. Let's say I have self-diagnosed ADHD, so I can maybe catch up. Like, hey, what did Brandon just say? So real-time call summarization.
I love it. That's fantastic. Holy smokes, that's a ton. Brandon, go ahead, Brandon. That's just blew my mind.
I was gonna say, and I joke about this quite a bit. Obviously, to do our podcast, we are not on the Microsoft platform yet, or maybe unfortunately. So it would be really nice to be able to summarize this whole podcast now into a nice synopsis for our viewers. But maybe that's something we can look at down the road. Maybe we start bringing Microsoft to our podcast for that. Let's see.
Yeah.
All right.
And
Man, that's Vandana, this has been just super. We went over by 5 minutes, so we beat the top of the hour. But I did want to take a moment to say something to you. I want to say happy birthday to you because today is your birthday.
Yes,
and Brandon was going to sing. He said he's going to sing happy birthday to you.
Oh, you got to sing.
Oh,
Come
yeah.
on. You got to sing.
There's only one person bold enough to do a public platform singing, and that is Rick Garcia.
Oh, no. All right, so we're going to sing a little team song just for fun. Thanks, Bailey.
Yeah.
Boy. Okay.
I almost thought I will get like one of those happy birthday performances.
No, on camera, that's really tough. I start to sweat, it's like I get all sticky and everything. So it's not a good thing. Okay. I just want to say thank you very much for the time today. This has been a really, really interesting show because Teams Phone Mobile is coming. If you haven't heard about it, you can call us and talk to us about it. Send us a note, chat with us a little bit. This is pretty interesting because I can see the future. I think Vandana, you really in an hour meeting that we had on campus, my future thinking has shifted about the communications business, and I'm pretty excited to be in the know. So thank you very much. Thank you for coming to the show. Bailey, thank you for putting it all together for us. Thank you so much. And then Brandon, why don't you sign us off, buddy?
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Wanda. I think we're going to invite you again down the road as the roadmap continues. And for all of our viewers, happy Friday. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll catch you next week for our next episode 67. Bailey?
Thank you.